my goodness. Hello, world. What is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Disneynature's all-new feature film, Penguins, is a coming-of-age story about an Adélie penguin named Steve who joins millions of fellow males in the icy Antarctic spring on a quest to build a suitable nest, find a life partner, and start a family, none of which comes easily for him. I got a chance to see the movie a few days ago, and as with all Disneynature films, not only does it look simply stunning, but it is truly heartwarming, it's funny, and honestly, I felt like I was right there with Steve. I was rooting for him the whole time. Joining me now in just a few short moments, directors Alastair Fothergill and Jeff Wilson, and founder of the Jane Goodall Institute and UN Messenger of Peace, Disneynature Ambassador, the great Dr. Jane Goodall is here. How do you feel about that? Are you guys excited? I'm excited. We are all very excited. We're going to bring them all out in just a moment, but first, I believe we have the trailer for Penguins, so let's go ahead and run that clip.
Antarctica. Home to the deadly leopard seal. The mighty killer whale. And Steve. Thunder, feel the thunder. Thunder, feel the thunder. A gentleman who stands out from the crowd. Thunder, feel the thunder. Lightning and the thunder. Thunder. He's looking for love. Just a young gun with a quick fuse. He likes long walks on the beach. Fishing. And collecting rocks. Lucky for him, he's found his match. But when his other half leaves him alone with the kids, he discovers that being a father is more than he bargained for. Next Earth Day, Disneynature invites you to join an extraordinary couple fighting to raise a family in one of the most unforgiving and stunning places on Earth. Disneynature's Penguins.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make a ridiculous amount of noise. Jeff Wilson, Alastair Fothergill, and Dr. Jane Goodall sitting right here. Right here. Dr. Goodall, you appear to have a little Steve with you as well. Is that...
He's my one association with penguins is Steve.
There it is Steve.
Oh, sorry,
No,
I wasn't talking in the mic. It's not on.
Oh, that's good. No, there you go. You've nailed it. Wow, congratulations. Oh, what a wonderful film. I was just saying backstage, I got a chance to see it last week, and it is just fantastic. An achievement, honestly. How many years in the making? How many years to put this together?
So 3.5 years for the team, and 900 camera days in order to get to where we needed to be.
So I imagine now's a very exciting time as people are starting to see it. People are getting to react to it and enjoy it and appreciate all of that hard work.
Do you know, it's absolutely amazing. We spend so much time out in the field. We don't see many people. We're a bit sad in that way. And when you get into a cinema, we had an IMAX screening here in New York on Sunday. Cinema full of kids and lots of laughter. It was lovely, actually. We were very happy with the reaction in the cinema.
Do they react at moments that you expect? Do they react at moments you didn't expect? Like, how is that to see it with an audience filled with children that are just...
I think there's a amount of both. You know, I think it's amazing that there were some moments where the audience erupted into spontaneous applause, which I've never seen before.
Oh, that was just brilliant. When the chick escaped from the leopard seal.
Yes, yeah,
They all applauded. It was wonderful.
It's amazing. And the other thing that really got me was that the score is so brilliant from Harry Gregson Williams that all the audience members are bopping in their seats, and you could see all the seats going backwards and forwards. That's really special.
Well, there's a lot in there that... Oh, you were going to say, Alice?
No. Jeff just handled it well.
Okay, perfect. There's a lot in there I want to unpack. I want to dig into the score and some of the decisions. I want to talk about finding those wonderful moments. But the first thing, Dr. Goodall, it is an absolute honor to have you here on the stage and hanging out with us this afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. I know you first started your partnership, your relationship with Disneynature back in 2012 on chimpanzees, which very fitting. What has been this relationship for you, and why have you kept coming back year after year, film after film?
Well, because Disney gave me the honor of being an ambassador for their Disneynature films, because they thought, you know, with the profile that's been built up, mainly through the Geographic, maybe I can encourage people to go and see the movies and tell them that they're really fabulous and that they're, you know, different from other documentaries because they have a story. The story will attract the young people, especially, and help people to love nature and then want to protect it.
And that's the goal, right? Is to not just entertain, but to inspire, and then you want them to do something with that inspiration, with that energy, ideally going out. And you have a wonderful partnership, as do all the Disneynature films, with Wildlife Conservation Network, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very fortunate to have a partnership with them, and everybody who goes to see the film in the opening weekend can make a contribution by buying a ticket to penguin conservation, which is something that we're really proud to be a part of.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Whose idea was it to go to the Antarctic? Because it seems like a rough place.
Jeff and I have worked in Antarctica quite a lot. We made a TV series down there called Frozen Planet. And we always knew that there was one penguin. There are 18 different species of penguin on our planet, but there was one species that we thought was the most characterful. I remember pitching this movie to Disney. There was quite a famous film made about the emperor penguin. And we said, you know, these emperor penguins are beautiful, but they're totally chilled out. They're Californian surf dudes. The Adélie penguin is the New York taxi driver. He's just, he's just such a feisty guy. He's never quiet. We just knew they were going to be the funniest animal that we've ever had the privilege to film for Disneynature. And Jeff and I decided the time had come to do a real comedy. And you've seen the film. He's a real star.
Yeah, it is certainly of all the Disneynatures. There is an element of comedy that is present throughout, and it's because of the personality that we find in Steve. Yeah. You know, was it challenging following a penguin or following several penguins and sticking to one to watch the personality of these animals come out and come to life? Is it hard to capture that kind of thing?
It is very hard.
Yeah.
It's thousands of hours of our team's time, you know, watching, observing, understanding penguins, and so crafting a story out of that. But I think we knew that we wanted to tell a story around an individual that had flaws, because we wanted people to associate with that. You know, we all have flaws, and particularly first-time fathers, you know, trying to go through a process like raising children or raising chicks in Steve's case. You know, we all make mistakes, and we wanted to tell that story which we were observing and seeing in the field, you know, on a daily basis.
And we made quite a few Disneynature movies that feature mums and their challenges in bringing up the babies. And this is the first time we've had a chance to make a movie about a dad. And we're both dads, and we've made a few mistakes. So it's quite good to try and talk about the amazing dads that penguins can be.
Dads and mums, it's a joint effort.
You're right, Jane,
You know,
yes.
the dads can't do it without the mums.
No,
But true.
Most dads in nature, you know, they don't do much helping at all. So penguin males are quite rare. But Jane's absolutely right. It's Steve and Adélie, his gorgeous partner. She's a beautiful penguin. They work really hard together to feed their chicks.
Well, that is one of the things that is so heartwarming. When I say I was heartwarming, is to watch the relationship and watch the teamwork between the mother and father, and how these chicks they wouldn't stand a chance without both of them. They need both of those parents, and to watch them work together is just an amazing thing. And I can't imagine watching that through the lens and capturing that in real time.
It's absolutely the core of the story. You know, the challenges that both Steve and Adélie have to go through in order to raise their chicks is one of the biggest challenges in the animal world. You know, bringing up, laying some eggs, you know, raising your chicks in a short period of 4 months, you know, before where the weather window in Antarctica allows you to raise a family. You know, the rest of the time it's dark and it's cold. You know, so these animals have such a hard task, you know, to raise a family, and so to observe that and to capture it, you know, was the core mission of the film.
And also for the chicks. I mean, the chicks, they have to go on this long journey. They have to escape leopard seals, and then they have to learn to swim. And I mean, they go learning to swim, not with a nice, gentle sea, but with great crashing breakers. It's extraordinary. And I felt really sorry for those chicks.
You've done a remarkable job, too, of, as I mentioned in my introduction, I felt like I was right there. We get right into the colony. We're right in the nest as it's being built, as it's being populated. How did you get to be in such an intimate setting with these animals within their natural habitat without disrupting them, without interrupting the natural flow of things?
One of the amazing things about penguins is that human influence in Antarctica has only been very recent. So penguins really don't have certainly the Adélie penguins have very little fear of human beings, but the sort of first rule of wildlife filmmaking is never interfere. We're always very careful to be the right distance. But we did develop a special camera system which we called the Penguin Cam, which was a MOVI stabilization system, a steady cam people may be familiar with, usually designed to be about chest height so you can move around with people. We specially designed it down at this level, at Steve level with a wide-angle lens, and that pulled Steve out as a character from the 250,000 pairs in his colony.
So many. Jane, when you watch, I'm sorry, Dr. Goodall, forgive me.
Oh, Jane, I'm Jane.
Is that okay?
Jane.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really cool that I get to say that. Jane, in watching the film and seeing the images they're able to capture, do you ever think back of, oh man, if I had a camera like that when I was back out, do you ever look at those moments and just think of what you could do with that technology in your hands and like what the kind of observations and things you could do?
Well, actually, my main reaction to the movie, this brilliant movie, is thank goodness Leakey didn't send me off to study penguins. Because, on the other hand, if you discount the cold and that type of hardship, filming the penguins, and I meant to ask you both this, compared to chimpanzees in the forest for a cameraman, and you haven't got the trees and the darkness and the lack of light.
But what you do have is another penguin always getting in the way, which is just as frustrating, So whilst you can frame out a tree or a leaf when you're filming chimpanzees, there's always a penguin that manages to walk into shot just when you think you've nailed it. And,
okay, but I know from...
No, I think Jane's right. I mean...
thank you.
I've been privileged to work on 6 of the 8 Disneynature films, and this one for the cold and the conditions was unbelievably tricky. Chimpanzees in a dark forest, running after them, 100% humidity. They are on all fours a lot. We're always bipedal. We're constantly getting caught by lianas. I think that, when we were working on chimps, the cameramen and women would say they would do a whole day in the field, from dawn to dusk, running after these chimps, sometimes doing 20, 30 miles a day to keep up with the chimps. If they got one usable shot in the day, they were very pleased. With penguins, it was more that we would spend 3 or 4 days in a tent in a storm. And actually, for both films, we got very few what we call rushes, the actual footage. So both films, in their own way, were probably the most 2 demanding films we've ever done.
That's remarkable. We talk about the thing that makes a Disneynature film so special, and it is that story. Talking about the mothers, the fathers, the families, and things of that nature. As a group of individuals who has a ton of experience in this field, inside and outside of Disneynature, when you're doing a Disneynature film, do you have to adjust your creative process? Do you have to enter the production a slightly different way? Are you looking for different items or shots? Are you looking for different things once it comes time to plan for a film like this?
So we write a script like you would do any movie script, but the amazing thing about our jobs is that we get time and again, Mother Nature doesn't care what we've written down, and we get taught this fantastic lesson, which is serendipity is at the heart of what we do. We leave these moments open for magic to happen, and there's so many moments of magic in the natural world, and our camera teams are so brilliant at understanding when that magic is going to happen and when to be in the right place at the right time and to capture it. So it's a balance between a story that we've thought about in the beginning that's based around the behavior of an Adélie penguin, and then just leaving room open for magic to happen.
And I still think that we're in a very dark time right now as far as the environment's concerned. And I just feel that nature has come in there to help you to give these stories, because the stories that have emerged, I know with chimpanzee, you'd almost given up, and then the story came. Bears, scenes from Bears are still so vivid in my mind. These two very different characters with the two cubs, and then when you did the Magic Kingdom, and you got this amazing female and the male. I mean, what a story!
They're almost infinite, aren't they? Those stories. I
Yes,
think that's what drives us a lot of the time.
Now you've got Steve.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Why Steve?
Because maybe it's more of a UK thing. I think it's landed here as well.
Yeah.
Steve is a sort of, he's going to be a doofus. Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm sorry for all the Steves out there, but you know, it's sort of, and we wanted to reflect the fact that it was his first time. It was a first-time dad. He'd never found a girl before. He'd never done all of that sort of stuff. And what's lovely about the film, I think, is that he fails a lot. I mean, it's a Disney film, so as you expect, he probably
Redemption.
Yeah, there's a bit of redemption. That's part of the process. But for us, Steve caught that mood, and actually, Ed Helms' narration. He was perfect too. I mean, we were so pleased when we heard it. We felt that he'd got Steve in his mind and in his voice.
Yeah,
Steve fails a bit, but he succeeds.
He does.
I mean, he succeeds in a big way.
Yeah.
There's a lesson for all of us in that. And watching Steve, it's so weird to identify so much with this little penguin that's just kind of going about trying his best. It wasn't to suggest that Steve doesn't work. Steve fits perfectly. I was just curious, why Steve? Why not like Pete the penguin or something like that? But Steve makes so much sense when you explain it like that. Yeah.
And I think, you know, the fact that these penguins, how high are they?
Or just about
2 feet,
Yeah,
I believe it was said,
exactly.
right?
So, and this comes home to you when you see the shots of the orcas and the leopard seals. I mean, they look huge and terrifying, and we don't normally see them that way. So, from the view of the penguin, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I agree.
Knowing that you're going to have to throw out half the script because you can only plan so much, what do you actually write down? What does that script become? Are you, as you're out in the field, changing it so that way, okay, now this happened, we've got to write this in and keep track of all those things?
I think it's really important for all of our teams. You know, we're always communicating with each other. We're understanding what each other are getting, and that story has to evolve. I mean, you know, the thing about Adélie penguins is that they have a gamut of behaviours that we understand already, and that forms the script. And so we kind of, through the wisdom and the knowledge and the science that's gone before us, you know, we have an understanding of what's possible. But there's always the impossible that does happen, and on occasion in the film that's represented.
And when it does happen, we say to the cameramen and women, make sure you shoot it from Steve's point of view. So we had an amazingly terrifying katabatic storm. And Adélie was on her eggs, she was covered with snow, and Steve was out there on his own. And you need to get those lonely shots, really low angle, really get a sense of what it's like to be lost on the ice when everybody else has made it back to the colony. So it was always, whatever happens, make sure you shoot it from Steve's perspective.
One of the things I was thinking of during that sequence is, I mean, maybe it's as simple as keeping a camera trained on that spot, but how do you find her after that storm? How do you know where anybody is? Everything was covered in this thick blanket of white, and you just had to wait for whoever could emerge. How did you know where to look?
It's just full credit to the camera person who did shoot it, they endured that storm in order to get that shot. And so, that's the kind of commitment that the guys and ladies that we send out have, to the cause, is that they are sitting there literally watching it all the way through the storm and ready for that moment to happen at the end.
Did either of you make it out at any point to the Antarctic? Did you go?
Oh, yeah, we go. Yeah, definitely. I mean, what we worked out is that it's really too tough a place to work for more than 6 weeks. Right. But we actually covered the whole season, which it's a southern summer, so it starts in October and ends in February. We did 3 of those, and through each season we did a 6-week rotation. And Jeff or I, and also our co-directors, were always there. It was too tough a place to leave a cameraman or woman on their own. They needed a lot of backup.
And I asked them, I said, I'm surprised you didn't lose fingers and toes with frostbite, but he lost half a big toe.
Wait, what? So now we're telling that story live. Go on, Jeff.
Do you know what? I feel almost embarrassed about the whole thing because, your feet get very cold, as they do in many places, in mountains or the Arctic or Antarctic. Unfortunately, for the place that we're working, we were about an hour's walk away from the base camp where we were staying. And so at the end of a day when I had very cold feet, we have to walk up this scree slope of lava stones. And in doing that, the base of my foot was so frozen that I was bursting the cells inside my toe as I walked up. And so that's subsequently turned to frostnip, which subsequently turned to frostbite. And
on this film.
On this film. Yeah.
The amazing film, you gave part of your big toe for
Part
this
of
film
my
to
big toe
exist.
forever in Antarctica.
The least we could do is buy a ticket, people. My goodness, that is wild. I am fascinated by that. What a good sport that you're sitting here telling this story.
I could have just kept my feet warmer.
You
probably
could
should-
Yes.
You should probably take off your shoe and sock and show them.
No, you don't want to see it. You don't want to see it.
This is a viral moment. I think we should go for it.
Jen, you are going to be my full-time co-host. I don't think I would have gotten any of these moments if it wasn't for you. If I may ask, we hear about losing toes and the terrible storms. Of all your many adventures, what's your wildest memory or scariest moment from when you were out on safari out in the wild?
Well, actually, it's not when I was out in the wild. And since we're talking about losing toes, I've lost the end of one thumb. But that was a chimpanzee in medical research, and it wasn't his fault. It was the person I was with. But anyway, we've got something in common.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
certainly
We've
do.
got something
If
in
I ever find your thumb, I'll stick it on my toe and I'll be there.
No, they found the thumb.
Oh, okay.
After 1 hour, the chimpanzee spat it out.
Oh. Says a lot about your finger, doesn't it?
I'd like to say that my body is complete. So
All your digits are
Well,
intact.
good for you.
Yeah, neither one of us seem to have any interesting stories of losing a digit. No, I think we're so.
No, it's us two.
It's just you two. I've been given this signal. I've got a lot of audience questions. I want to make sure we have time for that. So I'm going to start going to those from now. But Penguins is absolutely incredible. It's in theaters April 17th. And again, if we get tickets in the first opening week, the portion of the proceeds goes to the
Wildlife Conservation Network
Thank you.
and the Global Penguin Society.
I
Global-
do make
sorry.
a point if you can seeing it in IMAX. It's the first Disneynature film ever in IMAX. And I tell you, Antarctica on that massive screen is just so special.
Find the largest screen you can, get lost, and have a great time with this film. It is phenomenal. Congratulations again. All right, let's go to our audience. We've got at least 4 in the room. You should have microphones. First one's going to be right over here. Come on down.
Hi, Jane. It's an honor to meet you. I first learned of you 19 years ago in high school, and ever since then, I've looked up to you. I've always wanted to meet you, and I just want to thank you for all that you've done for the animals and the earth. I look to you as inspiration, as I'm an animal activist myself. And I wanted to know what recommendation you would give to all of us to be good stewards to the earth.
I think the most important thing is to realize that every single day we live, we make some impact on the planet. And we, in the developed world, we have a choice as to what kind of impact we're going to make. And we have choices, little daily choices. What do we buy? Where did it come from? How was it made? Did it harm the environment? Did it lead to suffering for animals? Is it cheap because of child slave labor? And it may seem small what I can do, but when you multiply that by hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, we start to see the kind of change that we must have. And of course, some people can make even bigger change by signing some document, some bill into law.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. We've got a few more. The next one's going to be right over here in our front.
Hello, I just wanted to thank you all for being here. I'm very excited to see Steve's story this weekend. My question is, with the rise in popularity in these documentary films about animals, how do you think that influences the public opinion about these environmental issues that we're facing today?
I think it's fantastic, actually. I genuinely believe that the tide has turned. I mean, it's about time because in just one human generation, we have done more damage to our planet than the whole history of humanity. But at the same time, this generation, your generation, are the ones that realized the problem. And realizing the problem, and our films are part of explaining that problem, there's also solutions, as Jane says. We all can make contributions. We reckon we've got 20 years to turn the planet round. Anybody who tells you that climate change isn't happening, it needs to come to Antarctica, I can tell you that.
Take Trump with you.
Yeah. Anyway, well, yeah, we can leave him on an iceberg or something. Anyway, but no, it is an exciting time. And Jeff and I have been making wildlife films for over 20 years, and when we started, we felt we were shouting in the wilderness. We were quiet voices, and it was sort of inspirational people like Jane who have continued with this message. And for the very, very first time, particularly young people are really engaged in these stories, and they really feel that they've got to do something, and they can and they must.
You know, thank you for your question. That was great. We're going to go to the next one in a second. But having this resurgence in popularity, you worked on Our Planet as well, Alastair. And, a couple of years ago, Planet Earth kind of sort of reignited that. I just had another talk a couple of weeks ago from National Geographic. Bear Grylls was here. He narrated a series. As the popularity increases and more of these amazing films are being made, as filmmakers, has it at any point become challenging to figure out how to stand apart, how to push the envelope even further? How do we make this one more than the last, as a creative decision, as a storytelling decision?
I think we should be celebrating the fact that we're putting more and more natural history on television. The more animals and the more environmental messages we can put on, regardless of who puts it on, is a fantastic thing, and we should all be very proud of that. You know, whether you're an audience member or a filmmaker, you know, the fact that we are putting the natural world front and center more and more is an incredibly important thing. So, I don't think there is a challenge. I just think that we're in a really golden spot at the moment, and long may it live. You know,
And also, you know, I mean, what we're finding out about animals now from the scientific point of view, it's incredible. We're now finding out that insects can be taught. We know about the octopus. We know that birds can do some problem solving quicker than human children. So the whole field is open. And I think for making nature films, it's a perfect time, because you can pick on some of these things that when I began were not possible. I couldn't even talk about them. I wasn't supposed to give chimpanzees names. It wasn't scientific. They should have had numbers. So you'd be talking about, you know, all the animals in your films with numbers, and so what?
And that's one of the real joys of Disneynature. I mean, Jeff and I worked on Planet Earth. We worked on Our Planet, on the Netflix series. And we love making those documentaries. But there's something special about the storytelling. There's something very special about somebody giving you 80 minutes of their life, come into a dark room, hopefully with a very big IMAX screen, and it's special. And I think it's a real responsibility for us to tell narratives, strong stories. But the good thing about nature is there are so many stories. There is absolutely no doubt that the best stories are in the natural world. It's just our challenge to tell them in an engaging way that the whole audience will love.
You're certainly some of the best, if not the best, at doing that. So thank you. We got two more. All right, two more questions. Let's get it going all the way over in the back. Go for it.
Jane, how do different types of simians interact more closely or more distantly with humans, and which types of them have more individualistic or more group-oriented behavior?
What did she say?
I think the question was how do different types of simians associate with humans in their behavior? Is that right?
Interact more closely or more distantly with humans, and which of them have more personal or more group-oriented behavior?
Well, chimpanzees and the little bonobo and humans are equidistant in the DNA. We differ by only just over 1% in our DNA, but it's the behavior that's so fascinating. I mean, chimpanzees, like humans, embrace and kiss each other and pet each other and beg for food, and they swagger and they shake their fist and they use tools. So it was the chimpanzees that first helped me to get science out of this narrow way of thinking that we humans were completely separate, that there was a difference in kind, and forevermore we were not part of the animal kingdom. But the chimps helped to make that line disappear.
It's amazing. Thank you. We're going to do one more. We've got one more audience question right here. Go for it.
Hi, Jane. I'm really passionate about saving wild spaces for animals. Even in Antarctica, is Steve's home safe? And what are your thoughts on saving habitat?
Well, saving the habitat is absolutely crucial. And the point that people seem not to realize is it's not just the wildlife that depends on saving the forests or preventing the melting of the ice. It's our future that's at stake. We need the wild places. We need the forest for clean air and clean water. We need the oceans for the same thing. And, you know, you both can add on to this, but we actually need, we need nature. We need it. It's not just wildlife. We're not just fighting for wildlife's future. We're fighting for our own future.
I think you're right, and I think, you know, speaking to Antarctica, you know, it's a place that often drops off the map in our consciousness. You know, it's a huge continent that sits at the bottom of the planet. We don't often speak about it, and this film hopefully will bring some awareness to not only the beauty but the fragility of that environment, the ecosystem, and the Adélie's role in it. So it deserves our attention, and it is by no means you know, sort of away from us in the way that we feel about it. So
and it deserves not to be drilled for oil.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. That was a great question. Those were all great questions. You know, I didn't even get a chance to mention that this marks the 10th anniversary of Disneynature. It's 10 whole years. And I wonder if you already know the next story you'd like to tell or where you'd like to see Disneynature in 10 years. If you guys intend to tell more Disneynature stories and what you're thinking about and where you are. I know you said we have 20 years to turn things around. Where do we hope to be in the next 10?
It's been an amazing journey, and one of the challenges that every single species is so different. And I think the challenges we have as filmmakers is to work out what is the key characteristic of that species. And definitely for penguins, we thought it was comedy. We think they're the natural comedians. The next film that Jeff and I are going to start on, and it's going to take us 4 years, is polar bears. So we're going from the south to the north. And polar bears have probably got the cutest cubs of any animal on the planet, but at the same time, their lives are so threatened by climate change. And so that's not going to be a comedy. It's going to be epic, it's going to be an amazingly engaging narrative, but it's not going to be a comedy.
And you're going to lose a toe.
At least one.
Well, that's an absolutely perfect spot to wrap things up. I want to remind everyone once more, the 17th, April 17th, that Penguins is going to be out there. Find the biggest, largest screen you can. Go with a bunch of friends and really enjoy yourselves because it's a freaking hilarious movie, and it is eye-opening, and it is jaw-dropping. There's stuff in here I guarantee you've never seen before. So you definitely have to get yourself some tickets and go see Penguins. Also, right now, in this very moment, I'd like you to make an absurd amount of noise because I need you to help me thank Jeff Wilson, Alastair Fothergill, and the great Dr. Jane Goodall for being here. Please, make some noise. Let's go. Come on.